last but not least, last talk today is from Eric, talking about what's evolving in Icinga, and the name speaks for itself.
That's true.
Let's see what's coming up.
Okay,
welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, hi everybody. I want to share some big developments we've planned for this year. And I picked about 4 topics, and I hope we make them all in 45 minutes. Let's see. My name is Eric, and I work for NetWays, but most of the time I do spend in the Icinga universe. And the first topic is about notifications. And first things first, we're going to talk about what we already have, and that is notifications in Icinga 2. And what we do there, or what Icinga is capable of course, it sends notifications, but we configure our users there in our user groups, which are the targets of the notifications. We have time periods, so when a notification has to be sent or not. We also have escalations, we already seen that, and of course we have our notification scripts as notification methods. But from a user perspective, or from a customer perspective, who have many users or contacts in Icinga 2, there are some things missing, and that is on-call scheduling. That means that you have a calendar, for example, where you put people on duty from Monday to Friday in specific time frames, and Icinga, or the component, decides based on this schedule who actually is going to be notified, instead that you have to configure who's going to be notified really. So you configure it in a calendar or in a schedule. Users don't have the possibility to subscribe to events or alerts on their own. So if someone configures notification methods for you, you don't have a chance to get alerted about other problems in the system you may be interested in. So if you use services in your network pretty often, it goes down, you may be interested in getting notified about them as well. That's not possible with the Icinga 2 config. And of course, everything is in Icinga 2, it's how to split up the configuration across teams. So if you have different teams, different permissions and restrictions, that may be a problem. Maybe the director may help you, but it's not so advanced that you really can do it in a way where you have to manage many contacts. So for this year, or we already started because the customer paid it, we're going to have a notification manager called Noma. We already had this, I don't know, 5-10 years ago for Nagios. We had a notification manager. We did not continue to develop this. This thing is completely new. It's a Icinga Web 2 module. And basically, it's a central component to manage, send, and track all the events, incidents, and notifications that happen in your monitoring environment. So what it adds is that you configure everything via GUI and not in Icinga 2 config. You get the permission and restriction system from Icinga Web 2, so you're actually able to split up the configuration across teams. And it has the possibility of on-call scheduling. And the foundation of notifications, of course, are events. So events in Noma answer the following questions. Where does the event come from, so which is the source or the origin, what item is affected, when was it triggered, what's the severity, and what's the message. And that looks really familiar to Icinga checks. So Icinga checks are just events which are forwarded to Noma. But it's possible to handle any other event in Noma too, so it's not bound to only Icinga configuration or Icinga objects. You can send any other events to Noma too. And we'll see afterwards what's good about it. Events can be submitted via CLI, a dedicated API, or by manually inserting them into the notification manager database. And those events are reaped by a daemon. So you just send the events to Noma, and Noma decides how to proceed with the events based on your configuration. And from events, we get incidents, and incidents are problems in your environment. And from an Icinga perspective, incidents are created from problem events. It's possible to pause and resume events, and also to close or resolve events. So pause and resume is, of course, if you schedule a downtime or you acknowledge a problem in Icinga, then you pause or resume the incident, and recoveries, or if the host or service is gone, then you close the incident. But you can also do that manually, and you're not bound to Icinga events here. And those incidents are escalated in Noma according to policies. And policies are just reusable escalation rules. You're already familiar with the concept in Icinga too, I think. Basically, it is, if the problem is not resolved within a specific period of time, please notify someone else, so hopefully he takes care of it. What we have in Noma is a MySQL database, so we have a dedicated schema for all that stuff that we can track our events, incidents, and notifications, and view them, of course. We have our Noma daemon as CLI command, so we only have these Icinga Web 2 module, and there's the daemon and the GUI already integrated. And of course, we have the overviews about events, incidents, notifications, and we have the configuration of all that stuff in our GUI. So the Noma daemon, basically, if he reaped the events and detected incidents, it alerts to contacts, contact groups, or so-called, or the schedules I have already mentioned. So Icinga just forwards all events to Noma, and Noma takes care of sending all those notifications. The state of an escalation is saved to a database, so if you restart the Noma daemon, the state is recovered, and notifications are not sent out twice, for example. And we have default channels for mail, SMS, and even voice, but there can be any other channel configured in Noma as well. You just have to, you can reuse Icinga plugins for it, for example, or Icinga scripts, or you can write your own channels in PHP or any other script. So basically in our GUI, we have contacts and contact groups. We configure our own schedules. We have time periods, even overrides in the GUI. You could configure holidays for yourself or for other people. We have policies, and we have the notification channels, and this is all manageable in the Noma GUI or the Noma web module. It's possible to route events to policies based on filters. So maybe you defined in your team an escalation rule, who's responsible if time period X elapsed and you did not fix the problem. And then you get your event, and you can route this event to specific policies based on filters you already know from Icinga Web 2. So for example, custom var is set to production, so please route these events to another escalation than other events. We think about a feature called notification aggregation. So if you have a serious outage in your system, you may face the problem that you get hundreds or thousands of notifications, and Noma will detect that and try to combine all these notifications into one, and only send you one notification instead of, I don't know, many. And there's this thing called My Notification Channels. You often get notifications when you're at work, for example, and you get a notification by mail, but that may not make sense because you have your chat tool open, for example. And if you're leaving work, you may want to have mails because then the chat is closed, or you want to have push notifications or whatever. So in Noma, we think about it. It would be great to have or to allow it for users to decide in which time frame the channel they want to be notified. So you configure, for example, from 8 to 6 in the evening, I want to have a Jabber or a Slack notification, and when I leave work, then I want to get an email. And to give you a quick glimpse of the schedules feature, you define a schedule, give it a name, maybe with some permissions and restrictions. These schedules can be used as a notification target. And I created a little example schedule for the Icinga camp. And The schedule here has 2 time periods. So from Monday to Friday, there are different time periods configured. And I say, okay, my team is Michael, myself, and Blerim. And I configure in the schedule who's going to be notified on which day in which time period. And I can have more than one schedule as a notification target as well for my incidents. So I think that's pretty cool. Our next topic is mobile experience. And at the moment, we have a responsive layout or design of our Icinga Web 2 GUI. So it adapts if you have an iPad or if you have a mobile phone, then it shows the view optimized for your screen. But there are other things you want to do with your, I don't know, mobile phone, right? So you want to have push notifications, for example. You want to maybe have optimized workflows for your common monitoring task, like acknowledging a service, scheduling a downtime, or just adding a command, for example. And it's good always to have a mobile optimized user experience or user interface. And in this year, when we already started, we're going to have or build an Icinga app for iOS and Android, which we'll ship over the respective app stores. And the mobile app, or the Icinga app, is based on React Native. It was written in React Native, which is pure JavaScript. It's based on React, which is a library for building web apps. And the cool thing of React Native is that it's like a native app. So, of course, you write JavaScript, but React Native uses native UI elements a Java or Objective-C app would use. So it feels like a real application. For devs, it has live and hot reloading. That means that you don't have to compile anything. You just change your source code, and it's already transported to the app. And most of the code you write is already cross-platform, so it's no problem to build or publish a iOS and Android app. We won't have a Windows app, obviously, but we think about maybe optimizing the app for iPad as well. Basically, the mobile app is nothing else than a Icinga Web 2 API client. So the app reuses the permissions and restrictions you have configured in Icinga Web 2, maybe. And we'll add notification configuration. So you decide for which objects you want to have push notifications in the app. And for the start, we have all the common monitoring views, hosts, services, dashboards, host groups, whatever. And of course, the most common monitoring actions will be possible, like acknowledging, scheduling a downtime, adding commands. And of course, multi-selecting hosts and services is also part of the app. The architecture is pretty simple. We have the Icinga app connecting to the Icinga Web 2 API. And if I want to see hosts and services, Icinga Web is querying the database and then pushing back the JSON result to the Icinga app, which is then displaying this JSON in a nice way. And if I or if you reschedule a check, for example, then the app connects to the Icinga Web 2 API, and Icinga Web 2 will then push these check to the Icinga 2 API, and the command gets executed. So we just add the Icinga app as a client or consumer on top of the Icinga Web 2 API. For messaging, we have what we think of having a simple script in Icinga 2, which just pushes, hey, Icinga Web, I have a notification for you, and Icinga Web knows which apps are registered. And then Icinga Web decides or connects to a cloud messaging service and says, okay, please send notification ABC to exactly this device. And at the moment we're playing with Firebase, I think, which is a Google platform. Funny thing is that it's not bound to only Android, but it's also handling iOS devices. So we could use this Firebase thing to get push notifications for iOS and Android, but it could be our own service as well, which connects to Android and or iOS. So We're not sure about that, but we will have a service, cloud messaging service, which sends the notification to your device. So this is our first draft, how it looks. Yeah, simple search, switch between hosts and services, have our problems view, multi-select, like you know it from a native app, right? Dashboard in our first version looked like this, so all the common monitoring tasks will be part of the app. And I also have a quick demo of how it could really work, and I just started. Yeah, pretty nice, right? So the last thing you saw was that we could also support having multiple instances of Icinga Web 2 or multiple Icinga instances managed with a single app. So you could have push notifications from multiple instances in one single app. Okay, so from mobile we move to a very interesting part, and that is reporting. Arguably, reporting is a very important part of monitoring, and we don't have any reporting-related functionality in Icinga 2 or in Icinga Web 2 yet. And it's a big missing feature, of course, which many people ask, how do you do reporting with Icinga 2 and Icinga Web 2? And for Icinga 1, we had reporting based on Jasper reports, which is a big fat Java thing that you have to install, configure. But we discontinued the development of this, and we discontinued promoting it because we always had in mind that we want to create something new, something better. So Jasper reports or reporting with Jasper reports had one really big problem, and that is Jasper report itself, because it's a big dependency and that adds complexity for us and for the users of this. Because you have to learn how the tool works, you have to define how to fetch the data, so you have to rewrite the SQL queries, for example, in that tool. Then you have to define how the report should look like, and this is most of the times done in a markup or templating language which is exclusive to the tool. So you have to master the tool in order to do proper reporting. In Web 2, we already know how to fetch the data, right? Because we have so many modules which have data. The monitoring module, for example, has all the data. And if it doesn't have the data, we have the tools to fetch the data or to gather the data in a different way. And reporting is just another presentation layer. So there's no external engine needed like Jasper reports. So we are going to have a Icinga Web 2 reporting module, hopefully this year. And it is central, it will be the central component for reporting related functionality in the Icinga universe. It will support ad hoc and scheduled generation of reports. That means that you plug your report together, generate it, download it, but you could also configure an automated generation of the report and an automated distribution of the report. For example, a morning report every day, or a monthly report for your customers. Yeah, it should be simple and powerful, and we are trying to achieve that by providing a reporting framework with just the reporting engine. So the reporting module does not provide reports, but it just gives you the possibility to have reports. The reporting engine is nothing else than generating reports, and in the reporting module we have our GUI where you can plug your report. The only thing you have to configure for report really is the time period. You want to display the data and a filter about which data you want to see. And for time periods, we'll provide reasonable defaults like this yesterday, last week, I don't know, last year. But you can also add new time periods via the GUI. The reporting module will introduce hooks in Icinga Web 2. We have this system in Icinga Web to extend functionality. And those hooks will be used by other modules to provide formatted data for the reports. And I don't know if the name is final, but let's call this things modules provide reporting widgets. And this could be general overviews. Of course, we need availability. We need history about downtimes, notifications. Of course, for a report, it's important to have state histories. We need to have SLAs. We need to have, I don't know, top 10 alert producers, for example, all that stuff. But in a report, we could also have logs or graphs and even directory activities and deployments. That would be pretty interesting in a report. So this could be a reporting widget, right? We have logs, could be a reporting widget. We had graphs, could be a reporting widget. Availability, also a reporting widget. Then we have our director activity log, could also be a reporting widget. And you see all those things we already have, right? And those widgets are provided by module. And this is just HTML. So to create your own report or to write a report for developers and for us is pretty easy because we can just write HTML. And you as a user, you only plug those widgets together to provide to configure your very own report. It should all be also possible to have custom covers, headers, footers, logos, and so on. It should be possible to add other pages from other sources if you have that. And this stuff should be reusable as a report template, and we'll ship a default template with the Icinga design. And because it's an Icinga Web 2 module, we also have permissions and restrictions in it. So we have permissions to create, view, and edit a report, and with restrictions we can also limit users to specific sources and types of reports which should be accessible. The configuration of a report is pretty simple. You just give it a name, you select the widgets, maybe a schedule for automatic generation and distribution. Then we have recipients, so who will get the report, and a security context, so the Icinga web user the report is bound to. So you could either have a user which does not have any restrictions, so you get a full report of your system, or you could use, I don't know, your customer users, for example, as a security context, so that your customers only get a report about the hosts and services they are allowed to see. And you configure or set the output format of a report. Previews and HTML, obviously. We also have JSON and CSV. And the best thing of a report, or what you really want to have, is you want to have to export it to PDF, right? Because JSON and CSV is not a good output format for managers. And Icinga Web 2, we do PDF exports with a PHP library called DOM PDF. We have many bugs with the layout there. Problems with icons, large images, tables, the list is longer. And the worst thing is it takes quite long to really generate a PDF with this library. So we are looking for alternatives here, or we looked for alternatives here. And the first thing which comes to mind here is Phantom.js. But what we've learned in the last week is that Phantom.js is dead. So